And for more on what we are following in response to this brutal war, I am joined by Canada's ambassador to the United Nations, Mr. Bob Rae, joining us live in New York. Good morning to you.
Morning, Molly. How are you?
Thank you for taking the time to join us this morning. There are a lot of developments as we see by the hour. Russia capturing the largest nuclear power plant in Europe overnight, and Putin putting Russian nuclear forces on high alert here. Can you talk about the severity of these developments, please?
It's hard to describe how reckless what Russia is doing really is. And then we need to understand the nature of the crimes that he's committing, and we need to respond to them. I think the risk that he's put human life under, the attack on the nuclear plant, is not only a threat to human life in the plant, it's a threat to the health and safety of all of Europe, and indeed, knowing what we know about the jet stream, the whole world. So he can't do these things. This is just not going to. He just can't be allowed to continue to do this. And I think that's what all of us are wrestling with. What NATO is wrestling with today in Brussels. What a number of leaders are trying to engage with Mr. Putin, trying to talk him down from where he is, from the shelf that he's got himself on. And we all need to understand. We're beefing up our support for Ukraine. We're sending more weaponry there. Minister Anand announced that yesterday. So it's an incredibly difficult time. The Security Council will be meeting again today in an emergency session. And that, I think, will be an indication of just how seriously all of us are taking this terrible situation.
Can you speak a little bit as to what could be on the table? It was the General Assembly this week voting to condemn Russia and further isolating Russia. So what does that essentially mean, and what could today mean as well?
Well, I mean, the point about the various meetings that are happening, the Atomic Energy Agency in Vienna is meeting. I think everybody is just hugely not just troubled. These are all sort of diplomatic verbs and adjectives we use. I mean, people are just devastated by what's happening because it shows an irrationality that is deep and that is deeply worrying for the world, and therefore we're going to be doing everything we can to get Russia into a meeting and just really trying to talk to them about how serious this situation is. We'll probably get the usual propaganda. I see the propaganda machine was alive this morning, saying that it was Ukrainian saboteurs who were doing the damage, but that doesn't make any sense. That's just challenges all our sense of beliefs. The Russians are being reckless. They're being reckless with human safety. They're being reckless with human life, and they've killed a lot of people, and they've destroyed a lot of lives. Created over 1 million refugees, and counting. That number will go up every day this terrible war continues. So I think everybody's just trying to figure out what more can be done. What more can we do to persuade Russia that the path they are on is a path to self-destruction, not just the destruction of Ukraine, but to their own destruction. And I think that's becoming clear to everybody outside Russia, outside the Kremlin. But there's a kind of cult around Mr. Putin, and that's the other risk we have. He's not getting enough advice from people who have different opinions than his own. So there's what I call the Kremlin cult, and it's not a good thing when that happens in something as important as a government that has nuclear weapons at its disposal.
We saw a second round of talks yesterday, and what came of it was the agreement of these humanitarian corridors, but one has to wonder whether or not they will truly be safe. I want to get your opinion on that.
Well, you're right. There's a dialogue of words, and then there's a dialogue of deeds. So it's not so much what people say, it's what they do. And I think we have to call the Russians on what they do. What they're doing is not neighborly. Mr. Putin said, we just want to be a good neighbor. You sort of say, give us a break here. It doesn't make what you're saying and doing is completely contradictory. And even a 5-year-old knows that's what we call a lie. So the only way they can convince people that they're not just lying again is by actually doing what they say they're going to do. And that, I think, is is the challenge for the world. The Russians are not doing what they say they're doing. They say they're not bombing civilians. They are bombing civilians. They say they're not invading. They are invading. They say it's a special military operation. It's not a special military operation. It's an invasion. They say they're only targeting military sites. They're killing civilians. They're destroying apartment buildings. They're destroying homes. They're razing entire villages with their cluster bombs. So it's a lie from beginning to end. And we have to keep calling them on this and be as blunt as possible, because we just got to shake them till they come to their senses. And we're going to have to do everything we can to help the Ukrainians resist this terrible attack.
Finally, for you, when we talk about that help, the federal government announcing yesterday an unlimited number of Ukraine's refugees to be able to be welcomed here to Canada, is there anything more, in your opinion, that can be done in response to this war?
Well, there's a humanitarian response more broadly. The minister has announced another 100 million for the refugee process in Eastern Europe. There will, believe me, these costs are going to go up. What we are all going to have to do is much more. But I'm delighted that Minister Fraser made that decision. It means that Ukrainians can come here. They can be with friends, and in some cases with family. And it shows how we have welcomed people. And going back to the days after the Second World War, after the invasion of Hungary, taking in the Vietnamese refugees. This is who we are as a country. This is what we do. And I think it's really important for us to reaffirm that in what we're doing now. I think it's incredibly important that we do this.
Canada's ambassador to the UN, Bob Rae, joining us live in New York this morning. Appreciate you taking the time for this very important conversation and action, as you say. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Melanie. Good to talk to you.
Take care of yourself.